All right, you guys. I am super, super pumped to be hopping on here. I started the morning off with you guys doing Power 30, and I was like super wound up this morning. I'm not going to lie. And it just kind of kept rolling right on through my day to tonight. So I'm super excited to have Josh Coates on with us as our guest speaker. You guys know I have been like pouring into all of his stuff, his podcast. I've got his book here, which he'll tell you a little bit about. It's called F Leadership. And you guys, it is incredible. You can actually get his book for free. You just pay for shipping. And I'll make sure I drop all like the fun details and everything that we go over in the page later. You can see all of the nitty gritty. But this is one of the ones that you listen to or you read a couple times and you just keep getting little nuggets every time something different. So, I've been coaching on a lot of this stuff, kind of regurgitating what I'm getting. And we are so honored and blessed to have it come straight from his mouth tonight. I cannot wait for you guys. You know my style. We're not sugarcoating it. We're going to wrinkle your shirt. We're going to tell you there's food in your teeth. And he is the guy. I'm like, this guy is speaking my language. So I'm super excited. I am also excited because I have been invited by him next week to speak on actually one of his trainings, which is awesome. And he is inviting you guys to jump on. There's going to be 10 different guest speakers. It is a 7-figure system and secrets type of training, better known as like a 4-day leadership challenge. And he is a best-selling author. He works with network marketers. He's a great motivator and mentor. But you guys are going to love that. So I'm going to drop all the details for that in the team page when we're done. You're going to want to register. It's totally free. But yeah, I'm super excited and honored to be joining him and doing that and kind of partnering with this stuff. So I am not going to take any longer. You guys are in great hands. He is a #1 best-selling author. He's the founder of Push Coach Certification School. He talks about psychology because I have told you about that. He loves marketing. He loves sales. He combines the both. And he's going to push you past some of those limiting beliefs, talk about leadership and business with you guys. So I am going to turn it over. You guys are in for such a treat. Josh?
Hi, friends. What's going on? Thanks so much for having me, Caitlin. And thank you, everybody else, for giving up your Wednesday night, or if you're on the other side of the world. Sometimes I have clients in Australia. I think it's Thursday morning. I can never remember if they're ahead of us or behind us, but I think it's Thursday morning there. So if you happen to be in Australia, happy Thursday morning. Um, so pumped to be here. I absolutely love working with network marketers, which I feel like is kind of like a rare thing in like the coaching scene. I feel like you're either in network marketing or you're like anti network marketing. And I'm the weird guy who, just to give you a little bit of my backstory, played music in my 20s. And that was like my passion. I thought that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. But I got married and had kids really young, probably younger than 21-year-old boys should not have children. So glad that I did because I love my kids, but let's be real, guys. Men are pretty irresponsible at like 30, 40, 50, 21. Like, come on. So I got started really young, which kind of threw me into having to work jobs that I hated. I didn't have a college degree or anything like that. So I was just doing whatever I could to pay the bills. Led me to detailing cars, which, if you're super creative and are like a songwriter who plays 3 different instruments, probably the worst job in the world you could have is a job that feels like an assembly line. Like, it was just do these exact 10 things over and over and over and over. And we worked on commission. So the faster I could do those things, the more money I could make. And the only way for me to pay the bills was to basically drink 8 to 10 cups of coffee a day to keep my adrenaline going, which you guys know enough about this. You guys are like the OG gut health drink, right? Like, I was destroying my body, grumpy every single night, grumpy every single weekend. It was awful. And so I was playing music on the side, thought that's what I was going to do. And then my youngest son he went through 3 open heart surgeries by the age of 3. He's good now. Everything is fine now. I always want to like throw that in. But it kind of was just like, it was a big shift. It made me question everything in life. Like, one, how much longer am I going to play music that, by the way, is always taking me away from home? And is going to be a long time before it ever makes any money if we ever get lucky enough to actually get big and make money. So it was kind of one of those things where um, I just knew I needed to do something different for the sake of my family, and I didn't know what that was. And it scared the crap out of me because music was all I mean, I'd put my whole hope, dreams, everything into music. We literally had, raised money to record. We're talking to radio promoters. I mean, it was like this was my whole world. And just out of nowhere, at the snap of a finger, I basically decided to let that whole thing go. And I had this crazy idea. I was like, I don't have a college degree. I don't have experience doing anything other than music that I like. I mean, obviously I could detail cars, but I hated it. My back was starting to go out on me. My knees were starting to go. I'm 30 years old with a back and knees starting to go out on me. I'm like, this is not going to age well. And so out of desperation, I said, the one good thing about my job is that I wear headphones all day and can just like listen to music. What if instead of listening to music 8 hours a day, I just to try, I listened to podcasts instead? And what I found was that personal growth literally changed my freaking life. 8 hours of personal growth a day will mess you up in the very best way possible. So after just like probably 30 days of that, I was just like, I didn't have a word for it. I didn't know it was called personal growth. When you join a network marketing company, they're like, do personal growth, do personal growth. When you're just a random emo kid working in a detail shop, no one's like, have you been doing personal growth lately? So to me, I was just learning things, I was just discovering things. And all I knew was that my soul was on fire and I wanted to share it with everyone in the world. So I actually started my own podcast. I had a bunch of music gear and I was like, I can just set some stuff up, record. And it was just me sharing what I was learning. And then I found this dude named John Maxwell. Anyone ever heard of John Maxwell? Show me jazzies if you heard of John Maxwell. I do jazzies. I know it's girly, as you can tell. I see a lot of women on calls. By the way, hey Michael, what's up? Welcome to the girl squad. And basically, um, I heard him on a podcast, and I was both pissed off and relieved all at once. I was pissed off because I was like, this dude is stealing my dream. Like, this is what I was starting to kind of like get a vision for. Like, maybe I could take everything I'm learning and somehow turn this into a business. And this guy was doing that. So I felt like he stole my dream. But then, of course, there was this really big relief when I realized, oh, there is someone out there that I can learn from. And a couple months later, found out that he had a certification. I went through his certification. This was back in 2014. So, geez, almost 11 years ago, I went through his certification to become a speaker, coach, and trainer. And the life coaching is what I just fell in love with, even though to this day, I'm more naturally a motivational speaker. The life coaching, the psychology behind it literally blew my mind because all through my 20s, I had wanted to find a way to make more money to take care of my family. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit, so I had business ideas left and right, guys. I had the idea. Anybody ever heard of Wix or Squarespace? I was doing that when I was like 24 years old. The problem is I didn't have a word for it. But every time I got an idea and got it up into motion, I could live off of the fuel and the energy and the motivation for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then something would happen where it felt like I just ran into a brick wall and every single self-limiting belief I had started screaming and yelling and shouting until I literally just felt paralyzed. You ever experienced that before? Maybe before you go live on Facebook, maybe before you invite someone to try a product or join the business. Well, that was me. Business idea followed by brick wall. Business idea followed by brick wall. Business idea followed by brick wall. I actually almost joined a couple different network marketing businesses in my 20s. I didn't know that it was network marketing because I didn't know that terminology. But again, everything I started, brick wall. And so finally, when I learned the psychology of how my brain works and how my brain is connected to all of these patterns and signals that flood your body, I started to realize, oh, I'm not crazy. I started to think I was crazy. I was literally starting to think I was crazy. On one hand, part of me thought I was crazy. Another part of me, I don't know if anyone else grew up religious. I grew up super religious. I started to think that God hated my guts because God has given me such a huge passion to want to do something better with my life. And every time I try to do it, some wave of emotions is telling me I can't. And I actually started to interpret those heavy feelings as some type of like a sign from the universe that I was in the wrong place. And the only way I knew how to escape those heavy emotions was to quit. And so when I learned life coaching and I learned how the brain works, and that it's not that you're crazy, it's not that you're stupid, it's not that you have issues, it's just that you are a human who has a brain. That's it. And I started learning how to process these emotions and work through these emotions instead of running from them. And it literally changed my life forever. So to this day, I do a lot of motivational speaking, but the life coaching is what finally gave me the ability to stick to something, follow through. My first year in business, I made a whopping $500, two total sales. Anybody ever had a rough month? Yeah, I had two sales in a year, my friends. Two sales in a year. And I don't know enough about your guys' structure, but usually companies have like a monthly minimum they want you to hit to like earn your cruise and stuff. And for most of you, they want you to make 2, 3, 4, 5 sales a month. I couldn't even do that in a year. But in year two, because I was finally able to work through it and stick with it. And when I say stick with it, I'm not talking about just still having an account. Some people like to give themselves credit because they've been signed up for 5 years. I'm not talking about being signed up. I'm talking about day in and day out, taking the action over and over and over and getting to a point where it didn't matter how many no's I heard. You could have punched me in the face. You could have cut off my arm and I would have woke up the next day and just kept going. That's something we call, I have my own life coach certification now, and that's something we call self-confidence. You get to a point where most people develop confidence by having done something before and seeing the success. So you have confidence that you could do it again. Self-confidence is when you get so much belief in yourself and your vision and what you want to do in the world, you don't need to have any outward evidence at all. You just believe with your whole freaking heart that you're in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time, and somehow, some way, it's going to work out in your favor. And that, my friends, is the foundation of success. Without that, most people are up and down, just like me in my 20s. Build a little momentum. And some people, maybe don't quit because they're still signed up. But emotionally, if you look at what they're actually believing and what they're actually saying and what they're actually doing, a lot of people quit several times a week, several times a month, several times a year. And I always like to say that the tricky part is most people have actually done enough work to have climbed the mountain like 10 different times. But because they've never done it consistently enough, they haven't even got up the mountain once. And then you start to get this limiting belief. I've put in all this work and only this amount of results. Well, that's like me going to the gym once a week and then not for 3 weeks in a row and then wondering like, how come, man, I can't get results? Well, yeah, if you only show up 1 week out of the month, you digress more than you progress, right? And that's what most people's business look like. And so what happened to me was in my second year, when stuff started to actually work and I made $48,000 part time. And then in year 3, my very first full time year, I made $400,000, which is more money than anyone in my family has ever seen, in in like 5 years. And I was like, this is what I'm called to do. I made a promise to God early on that I was going to find a way to figure out this business stuff. And when I did, I was going to spend the rest of my life teaching other people how to do the same. And it just so happens that the momentum that I built up was because I was online, just putting it out there, talking to people, putting it out there, talking to people. And I just noticed like 8 times out of 10, a network marketer at least responds to me. And outside of that, people just aren't responding to me. And so I said, screw it. Let's just go talk to more network marketers. And so that's what I did. And then I just followed it and followed it and followed it. And eventually, just using life coaching, not using business consulting or mentorship, which I do now that I've been doing it almost 11 years, just using life coaching, I helped someone go top 10 in their whole company. And I said, I think we're onto something here. So then I helped another person go top 10 in their company. And then I started to realize that the things that were coming out of these coaching sessions were duplicatable. And so I started teaching them in groups and I started writing books about them. And F Leadership is like the leadership manual for network marketing. And here's why. You say, why F Leadership? That's pretty weird, because over and over and over, people said this to me. Josh, I don't think I'm good enough of a leader to grow a team. And I would say, that's interesting. One of my favorite life coaching tricks to play on people. Life coaching, by the way, is not telling people what to do or giving them good advice. It's asking questions to get them to go internally. Okay. So one of my favorite tricks to play on someone when they're using a word out of context is to ask them to define it. So I would say, okay, can you define leadership for me? What it is doing is by using the word define, it's forcing them to go to the logical side of their brain instead of the emotional side of their brain. When they're saying, I'm not good enough of a leader, it's coming from their emotions. It's coming from their triggers. It's coming from their limiting beliefs. I like to call them the stories they have created about what a leader is. When I say, can you define leadership for me? The word define forces you to go into the logical side and give me, without all of your limiting beliefs, without all of your emotions, just a very simple, like actual definition. And people would start to say things like this. Well, I think a leader is someone who shows up even when things are hard. I think a leader is someone who leads by example, someone who cares, someone who loves people, who shows compassion and empathy. And I'd be like, cool. So what part of that are you missing? And they would have this huge aha moment as they realized they had been disqualifying themselves based on things they had turned a leader into, that I personally think comes back to the word, you want to see this? The word influencer. Social media has made it look like good leaders have hundreds of thousands of followings, have pretty vibrant colors, and they're super trendy, and they're like the freaking Kardashians are not leaders, they're just influencers. Okay. Now, if you like to watch them, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't really care, but they're not leaders. They're not starting a movement of helping people to become, better people or whatever. They're literally just keeping you watching so that they can make more ad dollars. Like, that's it. And too many times, and this is the thing that bothers me more than anything else in the world about modern day social media, even though I love to use social media as a tool, that's the only reason I have a business. But social media gives us the ability to compound our stories and limiting beliefs faster than anything in the world. Because if you think only extroverted people can be successful, do you know what you will accidentally do? You'll accidentally follow the most extroverted people in the world. I mean, you will go follow freaking what I call peacocks that are just like the most flamboyant, and you'll be like, see, I could never be successful. And you'll be triggered by them and yet sit and watch them. Just like politics. It's been an election year. whole lot of people sit around watching things that make them angry and don't know how to turn it off. That's why our country is so divided right now, because social media has made it 100 times easier to binge the people you hate. And that's a really unhealthy thing to do, by the way, right? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It is not a healthy thing to binge watch the people you don't like so that you can talk more crap. Not good. But that's what our brain naturally gravitates toward. Our brain is constantly, write this down. I promise I will get to the four M's, Caitlin. Our limiting beliefs, sorry for my typos, are constantly looking for a story to justify our fears and excuses. This is in both of the books. Our limiting beliefs are constantly looking for a story to justify our fears and excuses. Anybody ever bought a car? And out of nowhere, everybody in the world has that car. Bought my first brand new car. I think it was that third year in business. I got a black 4Runner that was brand new, and I got the Limited, I think is what it was called. It comes with like the updated chrome and stereo, and I was like, this will be a little bit, since I'm getting the Limited, this will be a little bit more of a one of a kind, because I got the more expensive one. Nope. Every freaking person in Tulsa, Oklahoma had a black 4Runner Limited. Exactly like mine. How did that happen? Our subconscious mind is so powerful. You give it something to focus on, and it will automatically do it. That's its job, is to find things and save you time and save you energy. Problem is when we accidentally tell it the wrong things to look for. So when we get a limiting belief stuck in our head, it goes to work to try to prove. See, everyone has a 4Runner. They're everywhere. Oh my God. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you will think that people who have jobs have an easier time working a business because they are able to divide their day into different compartments. If you work a day job, you think that stay-at-home moms have it easier because they got all day. They're just sitting around doing nothing. We all make up stories about how everybody has it easier than us, which I'm not going to go into sales tonight. That's why sales, if you don't understand psychology, sales will be the hardest thing you've ever done because you will accidentally trigger everyone's limiting beliefs instead of helping overcome them. Okay. Really good messaging works with their limiting beliefs to get them to lean in. Please, please, please never make a post telling people that we all have the same 24 hours because nobody wants to hear that. All you're doing is triggering them. Instead, you lean in. Life is busy. Life is crazy. Oh my God. Even the holidays. That's why I'm so glad I found this super simple supplement I can mix with my water on the way to work. See how I worked that in? As instead of like, people tell me they don't have enough time. Well, that's crazy. It's literally just something you mix with your water. Okay, people hate you now. Like you just became the trainer at the gym that everyone avoids. Anybody else go to the gym? I avoid the trainers. Love them, give them a fist bump, and go my own way because I don't want to do all that cardio. Screw that. Like, I came to lift weights. All they want you to do is legs and cardio, and I'm not about that life. So I stay far, far, far away because even if you tell them, I want to get the biggest arms I've ever had, they'll say, good, then let's do some cardio. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So we have to understand first for ourselves. But second of all, as leaders, as communicators, as marketers, if we don't understand this stuff, business will be very hard. Does that make sense? So let's talk about the four M's because we're going to dig into the outline of this book, which is literally so the subtitle says, How to Motivate and Mentor Your Team to True Success. Anybody ever found it challenging to motivate others? To get others to show up and do what they're supposed to do? Anyone here that has a customer or someone in their downline should be shaking their head because sometimes humans can be the worst customers in the world. Like sometimes I just wish all humans were like my golden doodle. He'll just go wherever you go and do whatever you tell him to do. Sometimes I wish everyone could be like that, but that's not how everyone is. It's not how people are supposed to be because they're individuals. But this is how we make leadership simple. I want everyone to write this down. Leadership is not easy, but if we do it right, it's simple. The reason things are hard in life is not because they're hard, it's because people make them harder by overcomplicating them, adding their limiting beliefs, adding their stories, and before you know it, it's just a big crap storm. So the beauty of life coaching is it helps to remove all of that so that then we can just look at what actually is and come up with a simple plan to get from where we are to where we want to be. And so the 4M's is something that I've taught for years. That originally John Maxwell taught me. I changed out some of the words to make it more specific to network marketing because it's the perfect system. There's no better system than this. So the first M is model. Heard someone say this a long time ago, and I loved it so much, I've just retaught it over and over and over and over and over. Before you go to bed at night, ask yourself this. If my team did what I did today, would they be successful? If my team did what I did today, would they be successful? The end goal is to multiply ourselves. But I love what John Maxwell says. He says, we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. We cannot duplicate something we aren't. Does that make sense? We have to become something first, and then we can pass it off to other people. It's probably the reason I only made $500 in my first year because I was working on becoming something that whole year. Because I stuck with it instead of giving up, year 2, it finally paid off. I literally became something that then became this beacon of light to others that they could put their trust in. And when they got around me, they could tell I was doing something different than them and they needed it. Does that make sense? So when you are living the way you know you should be living, and no one's perfect, obviously, but when you're bringing your A game, one, it creates a place of integrity that makes people want to be around you because most people aren't becoming anything, are they? Most people are just barely surviving. And when they see you thriving, they are attracted to you. But the other thing is it gives you extra confidence when you show up because you know you've been bringing your A game and you know you're not just preaching it, you're living it. And that brings a different level of confidence. Does that make sense? But also, let's be real. If you're not adding new people to your team, who are you even trying to motivate? Who are you even trying to motivate? What I have found with my training groups is if I don't do my job as a marketer and bring in new people regularly, it doesn't matter how good the people are that I have there, they eventually get bored. So bringing in new people keeps the excitement, keeps the energy, keeps the engagement going because business, unfortunately, is a revolving door. The way I see it is like 20% of people are going to become lifers. 80% of people are with me for a short season of their life, and then they're going to find other things they want to do. And that's okay, by the way. The quicker you can accept that, the faster you can just like mind your own business instead of worrying about why people are quitting. I have friends that run local companies and all they do is sit around talking about how people just aren't like they don't show up on time like they used to. They aren't as committed. I'm like, so what? How is complaining about it every single day going to fix that? Like, let's stop talking about the problem and let's get to work on a solution. So if you know people are less engaged and quit more often, maybe we need to hire better people. Maybe we need to have a better training process. Maybe we need to expect that we're going to lose people and have people lined up ready to go. For those of you, I'm so sorry if you like know absolutely nothing about sports. My wife knows zero about sports, and I'm just the biggest sports fan in the world. I have so many sports analogies, but college sports, couple in the last 2 years, I think, maybe 3 years, they made it to where you can transfer from one school to another anytime you want and play right away. Used to, if you transferred from one school to another, you had to take a year off, and that kept people from transferring unless they were in like a really desperate situation. Okay. In addition to that, they can now pay college players, not directly, but they come up with advertising dollars that they can give them. So now, at the end of every football year and every basketball year, everyone is almost like going into like a lottery of who's going to pay me the most money. I'll come there and play. Now, you can hate it if you want to, but if that's the new way it works, you better get with the system or you're going to get left behind. And you'll see some coaches will complain about it, some coaches will embrace it. And so the reality is, I do believe, just personal opinion, 2024 and going into 2025, we're dealing with different people than we were in 2016. 100%. No doubt about it. Okay. So do you want to complain about it or you want to move forward? It's always somehow, some way you get to choose if you will give into the problem or create a new solution. It's one of my affirmations that I say every morning about me and my children. The world has problems. We have solutions. We're problem solvers. That's what leaders are. Leaders solve problems. We don't complain about problems. We don't become a part of the problem. We don't just spread rumors about problems. We ask, how do we solve this problem? Does that make sense? So we need to do the things we need to do to build our business and move forward, even when other people don't do it with us. To me, that's true leadership. True leadership is I do what I know is right, regardless of what others choose to do. It's just that simple. To me, that's integrity. I do what I say I'll do. If I said I'd be on a team call at 7:30, I'm going to be there, even if this is my rule personally. I don't miss a work appointment unless I would have called in sick for a day job. I think a lot of people, they are way more committed to a boss than they are to their own business. And I cannot tell you how many times I get the worst freaking allergies in the world. And I live in Oklahoma. Tulsa is like number 2 or number 3 in the world for allergies. So just pouring down everywhere. And if I wouldn't have called in sick for detailing cars, I don't call in sick for working my business. Is there an element where I would have called in sick? Absolutely. And if that's the case, then I cancel my calls, I reschedule, I do something different. But I'm not looking for a reason to cancel. I'm looking for a reason to show up. Does that make sense? Now let's move on to the next 2 M's because these ones are really important. And I kind of teach them together: motivate and mentor. And the reason I teach them together is because people tend to confuse them. We live in a world where motivate and mentor just kind of synonyms, kind of mean the same thing. It's just like, yeah, it's just inspiring people, just helping people. But I like to break them up into 2 categories for this specific reason. Again, I already told you that my wife, not a sports fan. She'll watch it with me and wear whatever team's t-shirt I ask her to wear because she's a wonderful, supportive, amazing wife. She'll drink a beer with me and pretend that she cares, mostly because she knows if my team loses, I'll be throwing things at the wall all night. So she pretends to care. But imagine, I live in Oklahoma. Imagine I send her to an OU football game, Oklahoma University, okay? And I give her an envelope. And I say, hey, babe, will you take this to the game and give it to one of the players? She's like, yeah, sure. Seems like a simple task, right? Take an envelope, give it to one of the players. She gets to the stadium. It's very confusing because there's 80,000 people wearing jerseys saying, we are going to win today. We're going to win. We're the best. We're number 1. If you're a true OU fan, it's horns down. We're the best in the world. And it's a little tricky if you don't know the game well enough to know which ones are players versus fans, right? Now, I want you to imagine that a different scenario, I'm up in the stands, and Brent Venables, who's the head coach of OU, comes to me and says, Josh, I heard you played in high school and you keep yourself in pretty good shape. You want to pad up and play with us today? And I would be like, yes, put me in right now. And I know for a fact that I am going to break something on the very first play because there's a really big difference between a 5'9", 175-pound 40-year-old and a 240-pound 20-year-old. Really big difference, right? Like, I remember when I was 20, you could just drop me on my head and I'd just shake it off. Now I just roll out of bed wrong and I'm like, I think I injured something. Like, what happened? I just rolled out of bed, guys. What in the world? I know that I'm going to break a bone, but I don't care because it would be the biggest reward in the world to play even just one down in front of 80,000 people. I'd feel like Rudy. I don't know if anybody remembers the movie Rudy. I'm a little old, so forgive me if you don't know what that is. Great, 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 great movie about a walk-on football player who finally gets on the field. It would be amazing. However, if he would come up to me and say, hey, Josh, I heard you played in high school and you keep yourself in pretty good shape. Would you want to train with us all summer, do two-a-days, learn the playbook, spend 10 months away from your family every single year, and basically live, eat, and breathe football for the next year to possibly get a chance to get on the field and play? Nah, dude, I'm good. I'm totally good. I'll just sit here with my beer and cheer for you. Now, this is why network marketing is really confusing. We think we're building a team. How many of you have used that terminology before for your downline? We are not building a team. We are filling a stadium. And if you go to a stadium like my wife with an envelope, you'll be very confused because everybody's wearing the apparel. Everybody's talking about winning the game, but there is a really big difference between the sacrifice between the players and the fans. Would you guys agree? And someone joins our downline, we automatically think they joined the team. And what happens when we think someone is on the team? We have expectations of what they should be doing on Monday morning. And then we're very frustrated when they're not showing up to practice, when they're not running sprints, when they're not lifting weights. We're like, what in the world is wrong with you? I thought you were on the team. Why are you such a terrible teammate? And it's very, very, very important to realize that just because someone says they want to go on a free cruise or they want to make extra money or they want to get a car allowance or whatever perks your guys' company has, just because they say they want it doesn't mean they're willing to do the work it takes to get it. Because in the English language, the word I want is very confusing. The word I want can mean the same word can mean two totally different things. One want is I am willing to do what I have to do to get it. But the exact same word can also mean I wish I could have that. Agreed? I really want six-pack abs. Am I willing to work for it? No. If I could have a genie and just have them delivered to me and I can keep eating as many tacos as I want and drink as many Coronas as I want and have all of the food in the world that I want, absolutely I'll take some abs. But if I have to do the work it takes to get abs, I already told you guys, I don't like cardio. I'm out. So we as leaders need to do a better job of judging people. And please hear me out when I say judging. I don't mean that as like a negative thing. I don't mean that in any way. But we got to do a better job of judging people based on their actions instead of their words. Because the same people that say, We're number one. We're going to kill you. We're the best in the world. Again, I don't know how many of you are sports fans. OU sucked this year. Our offensive coordinator left last year. And instead of replacing him with a high caliber offensive coordinator like we should have, we promoted one of the assistant coordinators who's never called plays in his entire life and just hoped it would work out. It did not work out. We went from top 10 offensive team in the country to, I think, like third or fourth worst offensive team in the country. And even though our defense was incredible, it doesn't really matter if you can't score. Our defense found themselves on the field 90% of the game, and you can only stop the other team so many times before they finally wear you out and start scoring on you. Now, at the beginning of the year, I was saying things like, we are the best. Do you know what happens in the middle of the game when we're playing like crap? You guys suck. What is wrong with you? See how quickly the tables turn? It goes from us to them. A player is a part of the team, win or lose, good or bad, right? A fan is only there when things are going good. Tickets for OU games went from like $500 a ticket and you could barely even get one to being like people are trying to give them away on Facebook. Like, who wants to go to the game this Saturday? I can't handle it. I don't want to go watch them lose again. And so we as leaders need to know the difference so that instead of getting frustrated with someone for being the worst teammate in the world, we can accept that they're just the best fan we've ever had. See the difference there? Some of you think you have some terrible teammates, and in reality, you just have incredible fans. You have someone that isn't actually planning on practicing every day that's still willing to show up and wear a t-shirt and maybe make a story on Facebook and talk about how awesome and amazing this opportunity is and how much they love it. That's a really great fan, not a bad teammate. See the difference there? And just that energy shift can change your life. To wake up every single day. How many of you have ever had a kid who's gone through some terrible twos? And you start to wonder if you're like the worst parent in the world. Like, is it me? Like, is something wrong with me? Like, I think it's them, but maybe it's me. And that's the hard part of leadership is when people aren't responding the way we want them to respond, we can start to think we suck. But when we realize, when we can shift the expectations of, oh, this was never a player, this is just a fan, all of a sudden we can release all of the guilt and shame we've been carrying so that we can show up with the life and energy and love that we need to in order to be a good leader. Does that make sense? So next to I want you to write motivate, and I want you to write, this is what I do for the stadium. In other words, the masses, anyone who shows up, with no strings attached. With no strings attached. Nobody gets mad that the fan didn't show up Monday morning for film day. They don't expect it. Stop having expectations for fans. Just have none. If you said you're going to go live in your customer group once a week, go live in the customer group because you said so. Whether or not other people show up doesn't make them good or bad. They're just fans. Fans show up when it's convenient. And if a fan has something come up, guess what? They're not there. Players build their whole calendar the entire year around when practice and games are. Fans show up when it's convenient. Stop getting mad at fans for being fans. They show up when it's convenient. And instead ask, how can I create such an impactful and exciting environment that they want to be here more. See the difference there? One is, how can I show up in a way that makes people want to show up? And by the way, doing it once does not mean that everyone's going to show up. It's, I'm going to put on a show. When I was a band, just you got to pay your dues. You got to play some shows where 2 people show up and you pretend to have fun. And it's just what it is. Because you never know which show you're going to play that 100 people show up and it's the kind of show you wanted to play. But you don't get the show you want because you want it. You get the show you want because you put in the work and earned it. Does that make sense? Because when you show up and bring it, people talk, people tell people, and eventually you do have a crowd. And then you have something called a following. And then the crowd is consistent, and then the crowd gets bigger, but I got to build it. Does that make sense? So get rid of expectations. Show up because you said you were going to show up, not because you were hoping they would be there, not because you needed them. This is a really powerful thing that I teach my leaders all the time. Stop looking to others for the affirmation and confirmation you should have given yourself when you woke up today. Can I say that one more time? Stop looking to others for the affirmation and confirmation you should have given yourself when you woke up today. I love you guys, and I appreciate you giving me your time so much tonight. But even if you all just sat there flipping me off with the bird all night long, I would give the best team call I've ever given in my entire life because it's what I said I was going to do. It would be painful, but I would do it. And I would walk away proud knowing that I did what I said I was going to do. Probably would not come to another team call for you, but the point is, I'm not here looking for your affirmation to let me know that I'm good or blah, 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 blah. I appreciate it. I'm always thankful for it. Of course, I'm a human, right? I appreciate that. But it's not what I'm looking for, and it's not what I showed up for. That makes sense? Now, mentor, the third M. Okay? This is very important. Next to mentor, I want you to write, this is what we reserve for the players. In other words, mentorship has to be earned. We don't give it. You think the head coach of OU football takes personal phone calls from fans on Monday who want to tell him about their life problems? I sure hope not. But I'd be willing to bet a whole lot of money that if his quarterback is having a really hard time personally, something that doesn't even deal with football, he's going to be there to listen to that kid because he knows if I don't help this kid work through some of this, he's not going to make it back on the football field the way he needs to be. And so when you are one of my players, I am personally invested in you. Doesn't mean I'm just sitting around giving you therapy 5 times a week, but it does mean I go over and above for you because you have showed me with your time and with your energy that you're the person I need to give my time and energy to. You've earned it. Does that make sense? I don't go around Target buying everybody's kids things. That'd be dumb. But I buy my kids things, okay? There's an obvious difference between what we do for the people we care about the most versus the people that we're thankful for. I appreciate every single person in Target, and I try to give a little bit of a smile toward everyone who walks by. It's just part of who I am. I think it's my job to leave everyone better than I found them, even if we just cross paths for that long. But I'm not like driving out to your house to dry your clothes for you. Not babysitting your kids for you this Friday night. There's a difference. Now, within mentorship, I'm only going to hit on this for like 2 minutes because I'm going to talk a lot more about this on next week's leadership challenge. Okay. We also need to learn not just how to mentor, which I want you to write this down. This is a little bit tricky. It's almost like mentor was like 0.3. We're going to go into like 3A and 3B. Is that cool? Because underneath mentor, what we're actually giving to the people that we spend our time with, we actually really need to know how to both mentor, and true coach. Write this down. And again, I'll talk a lot more about this next week. This is going to be kind of like one of the main topics of the day one. Mentor is when I'm telling you what I have done. That's what we're doing tonight, right? I'm here telling you things that I have learned, things that I have discovered that I believe you can take and put into action. It can help you, right? And that's a good starting point, and we have to do that. We got to give people a starting point. But if it's the only thing we know how to do, we're going to really struggle to help people. Do you know why? Ready for the quote that changed my life? Two quotes that changed my life more than anything in the world. I'm going to give you one of them. It is arrogant and ignorant to assume that someone else can do exactly what you have done and get the same results. It is arrogant and ignorant to assume that someone else can do exactly what you have done and get the same results. Imagine me finding a random person on the street and saying, you do realize that anyone can make $1 million a year as a speaker and coach and author, right? All you have to do is go message a whole bunch of network marketers, do a whole bunch of team calls, do webinars, put on groups, put out some books, and you'll make $1 million just like me. What if, first of all, that person doesn't have my same skills? What if that person doesn't have my same personality? What if I'm a really gifted speaker naturally, and they're the worst natural speaker in the world? Now, could I teach them to be a better speaker? Sure. But Michael Jordan, sorry for the sports terminology, cannot teach Steve Kerr how to dunk from the free throw line. Steve Kerr, for those that don't know, was a white dude who was 6 foot tall and would shoot 3-pointers and play a little defense. He is never going to be Michael Jordan. Now, he can be one of the best shooting guards there's ever been, but he's not going to be Michael Jordan. And too many times we've bought into this lie. If I can do it, you can do it. That's a lie. It should be, if I can do what I put my heart and mind to in alignment with my skill set, you can do what you put your heart and your mind to within your skill set. The same thing that works for Caitlin is not always going to work for Michael. Now, there's some crossovers and there's some underlying principles that can be passed off, but Michael's going to have to find his own voice. He's going to have to find his own brand. Imagine if Caitlin makes a post on Facebook that says, should I wear dress A or B tonight for date night? And so Michael says, well, let's just copy and paste that. It got her a lot of engagement. Should I wear dress A or B tonight? It's obviously a very extreme example, but this is what we do in business too many times. We think we can copy and paste someone else's success story, but it is our job to write our own. Does that make sense? Some of you on this call thought that your greatest weakness is that you don't look and sound like Caitlin, and I would tell you that that is your greatest superpower. Because if everyone in the world looked and sounded like Caitlin, be a pretty, no offense, Caitlin, you're a wonderful person, but it'd be a pretty boring world if everybody looked and sounded the same. Not to mention, can I throw this out there? The second you try to copy her, you are competing with her. And you are never going to win that competition if she's being true to herself and you're being a copy of someone else. So this is a quote from my second book, The Best Version of You. And basically, it's never settle for the next version of someone else when the best version of you is always an option. Do you think John Maxwell would have put out a book called F Leadership? For those of you that don't know John Maxwell, he was a pastor for 40 years, is one of the most clean-cut conservative speakers in the world. I don't even know if I've ever heard him say crap. Okay. He would not put out a book. In fact, when I put this out, I had some people from people that had gone through the John Maxwell program that I went through that were like, can you imagine if John Maxwell saw your book? And I was like, I can actually. And you apparently didn't learn from him as well as I did, because I learned from him that while he is like this, he teaches people to become themselves and find their own ways and find their own paths. And I really actually think John Maxwell would grab the book and go, wow, that guy's got some guts. I'm going to read the back of it and just see what he's up to, because I would never do that. But kudos to him if that's who he is. See, people get ideas about people. And if you know the real John Maxwell, he's one of the most loving and accepting humans on the planet. He's not offended by the fact that I'm different than him. He's excited by the fact that I'm different than him. That makes sense? And oh, by the way, I was the very first person on the John Maxwell team to do an online business. Do you know why? Because I tried doing everything in the world that 70-year-old white dudes told me to do, and none of it worked. Because I didn't have 40 years of business experience like they did. Didn't feel very authentic walking around in a suit and tie trying to pretend I had my crap together. You have no idea how many times I had to keep myself from cussing tonight because it's a team call and I don't know you guys yet and I don't have your permission to cuss. So I'm really, really holding back. But the idea is this. I tried to clone his business and it didn't work. I had to go find, based on his principles, how to make it my own. Does that make sense? And so true coaching is when I get really, really, really good at not just giving people some ideas to do, but then asking a lot of questions to help them customize it to who they are, what feels good to them. And when I say feel good, I'm not talking about comfort zones. I'm talking about, no, like that excites me. Okay. Some of you should be going live every single day. Some of you should be writing blogs instead. Some of you should be running ads. Some of you should be building email lists. Some of you should be doing Facebook groups. Like, again, same principles, same psychology behind all of it of what it actually takes to create an interaction and a connection and make a sale, but lots of different methods and ways of doing it. Does that make sense to everyone? And when you really understand true coaching, first of all, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, you understand yourself well enough to work through your own crap. But then you get really good at helping people find their true selves and also helping them work through their crap. Because, I want you to write this down, belief drives behavior. And 9 times out of 10, if someone is struggling with behavior, it's because they have a belief problem, not a behavior problem. There's something up here that is sending a signal, letting them or making them feel like that's not safe. That's our caveman DNA is what I call it. Just scanning constantly, looking for anything that could be unsafe. And your brain does not know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and someone on Instagram that doesn't message you back. And I know that sounds so dramatic, but it's real. Right? Has anyone ever been in a conversation with someone and everything is going good and amazing? Like, this is going to be the easiest sale I've ever made. And then you send the information on how to purchase and what it costs, and you never hear from them again. And you're not sure if they got abducted by aliens or if you missed the rapture. But this person has disappeared from the planet, never to be heard from or seen again. And while I'm intentionally over dramatizing it to make it a little bit funny, that is how it feels, isn't it? And it really does feel as big as coming face to face with a saber-toothed tiger. When in reality, the only thing that happened is you messaged someone and they didn't message back. That's it. But how your brain interprets that is, oh my God, it's the end of the world. I'm an idiot. I'm a dummy. Oh my God, why did I even say that? Why did I say that? Did I send too many paragraphs? Did I send too little? Because your brain doesn't know the difference. And so if you don't know how to coach yourself, you'll find yourself constantly feeling like you're fighting a saber-toothed tiger to show up for your business, which, by the way, is absolutely awful for your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But second of all, for a lot of you, is actually impossible to do. So you spend a whole lot of time doing what we call buffering instead of working. Buffering means I found things to do that make me feel productive, but they're not actually getting me closer to my goal. I made 30 new graphics on Canva so that I can make a carousel on Instagram. I don't know. Maybe if I did one of those carousel things, people would. I see a lot of influence if they swipe over 7 times at a whole, like if I have the perfect graphic with a quote and then an arrow, and I've never seen someone go from unsuccessful to successful because of new graphics. Or I don't know. I guess I just see my own website. I'm going to have my own website, which is really funny to me when network marketers feel the need to have their own website when they've never made a sale before. Like, what's this website going to do? Are people going to magically find you? Are they going to Google your name? No one has ever bought from you, but they're going to start Googling your name to see how they can send you money. So many things we do, not, this is very important, not because you're lazy, and not even because you're unmotivated. There's a lot of personal growth out there that is not based on psychology that will try to tell you you have, like a consistency problem, or you have a habit problem, or you have a motivation problem. It's not any of that, friends. It's that you have a human brain no one has taught you how to work with before. And until, ready for my second favorite quote that changed my life forever? And I promise I'll shut up. I know it's been over an hour now. I'm sorry. I don't know how to stop once I get going. Here's my second favorite quote in the world. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Can I give you an example? I grew up extreme religious, and I am not in any way anti-religion or anti-church, but I grew up in a borderline cult. Okay. If you want to learn more about the cult that I grew up in, you can privately message me. It's a pretty messed up world. Okay. Starting as a 4 or 5-year-old, there was this analogy that was used over and over and over. They said if 2 planes both start off in LA, headed towards New York, but one of them is even 1 degree off, instead of landing in New York, it lands somewhere in the middle of the ocean. And that's why it's important to follow God's perfect plan for your life, because if you miss it, even by 1%, you're off in the ocean somewhere. Now, imagine being a 5-year-old being told that if you miss God's will by 1%, you're going to land in an ocean somewhere. Your brain is interpreting that as like total and complete separation from God and drowning in an ocean. That sounds awful as a 5-year-old. And I was told that over and over and over and over and over. Do you know what voice popped up in my head over and over and over in my 20s that made me quit over and over and over and over? What if this isn't the perfect will of God? And that was the voice my caveman DNA used to scare me away from potential danger to go hide in the cave. And so over and over and over and over, because I was afraid of doing the wrong thing, I did nothing. And then one day, after I finally learned this psychology stuff and learned how to ask better questions and use a little bit of logic, which no one had ever taught me, I thought to myself, what would be worse? To be 1% off of God's perfect will while helping people and inspiring people and giving people hope and purpose, or to do absolutely nothing with your life and have to come face to face with your creator and say, thanks for that life that you gave me. I did absolutely nothing with it. And I just realized it'd be a whole lot better to be 1% off. It'd be better to be 50% off or even 80% off and helping a whole bunch of people than to do nothing with my life and have absolutely nothing to show for it. You see, I took something that was actually unconscious. I wasn't even totally aware of the fact that I kept quitting because of this one singular thing that had been taught me. And then when I learned life coaching and learned how to ask better questions, I finally realized what the trigger was. And once I became aware of the trigger and addressed the trigger, from now on, every time I felt myself feeling like, oh my God, am I doing the wrong thing? I was able to stop. Wait a second. Where is that coming from? Oh, yeah, I have that real stupid belief that was if you're 1% off, you're wrong. But now I know better to be 1% off than to do nothing. Cool. Let's keep going. And it gave me a way to work through the emotions so that I could give myself permission to move forward instead of staying stuck. And if you're in a leadership role and you don't know how to help other people do that, you know what you'll end up doing? Oh, you're not feeling motivated? Well, maybe you should read this book. This is the book I read. I think it will help you. Oh, you're having trouble with time management? Well, here's the planner that I use. Let me send you one. I promise if you just use this planner. Oh, you don't want to go live on Facebook because you're scared? Here's what I did. I just did it anyways. I counted to 5 and then I just did it. You should try that too. And we end up giving people a bunch of real stupid strategies that may have helped us, but in this moment, they're dealing with their demons. And when you're dealing with some heavy rooted demons that you've been dealing with since you were 5 years old, counting to 5 is not enough to get over that. Getting a new planner isn't going to fix that. You got to do some actual deep rooted work. Okay. That is what I'm going to teach on next week. If you guys want to learn more about that, if you hate it, that's fine. You don't have to come. If you're like, that's a real stupid, Josh, I don't even like that. Don't come next week. You'll hate it. But if you like that, you should come next week because here's the really cool thing. The last M is multiply. You want to know how to multiply? Model enough that you fill a stadium full of people, motivate the stadium so they stick around long enough to get some players that you can mentor. And if you properly mentor the right people, multiply is actually the easiest part of it. Don't even have to teach you what to do because you just did it. If you mentor and coach, use true coaching to help the right person. Duplicating yourself, multiplying is the easiest thing you've ever done. It's just that when we try to coach the wrong people or mentor the wrong people, multiplying is the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. Give me someone who's staring at the mountain and complaining about it, and we don't have a chance. Give me someone who's halfway up the mountain because of their own energy and effort, but starting to feel tired and hopeless and needs a hand. I got you every single day. All right. Okay, I'll shut up now, Caitlin. I hope I didn't go too long. I know if you're on the East Coast, it's getting really late.
You're good. They have an option to get off. They can get off if it's too late for them. Thank you so much. I just love watching the chat and getting some messages from people. Guys, just drop some love in the chat for him. I just love how tangible all of it is. And it doesn't matter where you are in your business. This is relatable. Whether you are a jewel, you are at the top, or you are a silver, you're getting started. Like, you definitely got some things to take away from this. So I thank you so much, guys. I'm going to drop the link. If you like this and you want more, jump in next week to the 4-day challenge. We'll have the link and everything there. You can catch him in there. I will be a guest speaker, which I'm super excited for. And don't forget, if you want to grab the book, or you can get this, and then you can get the audio version when you get this book too. So Josh,
we forgot to mention that if you just pay for shipping for the book, you get an instant download of the audio book and basically like an ebook so that you can start reading and or listening right away.
Yes, that is what I did. I started listening immediately. I think I was done listening before the book even got here, actually. I think that's what happened. So that's awesome. All right, you guys, thanks so much for hanging in here. Josh, you are the best. I will drop all of the information for you guys. Have a wonderful night.